The summer sun spilled gold over the ocean as a sleek black car pulled into the circular driveway of the Seabreeze Grand Resort. It was the kind of place designed for silence, far from the chaos of cities, reporters, or anything resembling real life. When Owen Larkson stepped out of the vehicle, he didn't glance at the towering palm trees or the lavish welcome staff waiting with cool towels and refreshments. He simply nodded once, sunglasses shielding his ice-blue eyes, and followed the concierge into the lobby like a man who had done this 100 times before. Owen wasn't there for luxury. He owned more luxury than most could imagine. He wasn't there for peace either. Peace wasn't something he believed existed. He was there for escape, a calculated pause in an otherwise unrelenting schedule. The CEO of one of the largest tech corporations in the world, Owen Larkson, hadn't taken a vacation in over 6 years. His assistant had practically forced this one on him after finding him asleep at his desk 2 nights in a row. And so, reluctantly, he'd agreed, on the condition that it be remote, discreet, and absolutely devoid of children. The resort, nestled in a hidden coastal town where privacy was guaranteed, checked every box. His suite was on the top floor, with private access to the rooftop infinity pool and a sea-facing balcony stretching wide enough to host a small gathering. Not that Owen ever would. He didn't do social. He didn't do small talk. He didn't do messy emotions. That first day, he did what he always did, disconnected from the internet, powered off his second phone, the one only his board members had access to, and lined up a stack of dense biographies and industry reports. He didn't speak to anyone unless he needed something, and even then, it was short and mechanical. The staff understood quickly. This man wanted no attention. By day 2, Owen had slipped into a rhythm. Early morning workouts, coffee on the balcony, afternoon hours at the beach with a book in one hand and a glass of mineral water in the other. His shirts were crisp, his expressions unreadable, and he moved through the world like someone who refused to be touched by it. Then came the third day. It was subtle at first. He was lounging near the pool, the soft sound of waves in the background, when he caught the faint rustling of movement behind one of the beach cabanas. He didn't look up right away. He hated being interrupted during his reading. But something felt off. He lowered the book slightly and scanned the pool deck. 3 little girls. They stood just beyond the far edge of the deck, near the hedge that separated the resort from the beach path. Not playing, not laughing, just watching. They couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. The smallest of them clutched a worn-out teddy bear. The tallest stood protectively at the front, and the third, the one in the middle, wore a patch over her left eye. Owen blinked. At first, he thought maybe they were someone's kids, though it struck him as odd that they weren't supervised. Most guests at this level of resort had nannies, or at the very least, hovering parents. But there was no one in sight. He shifted uncomfortably and returned to his book. He didn't like being observed, especially not by children. They were unpredictable, and Owen had built his life around control, logic, predictability. The girls didn't make a sound, but their presence unsettled him. He flipped a page but didn't register a single word. When he glanced up again, they were gone. That evening, he dressed sharply for dinner, as he always did. Dark slacks, tailored shirt, clean-shaven. Image was everything, even in isolation. He chose a table at the far end of the restaurant, facing the sea. He liked the rhythmic hush of the waves. It reminded him of the ticking of a clock, constant, precise. Midway through his meal, the air shifted. He couldn't explain it, but something made him look up. There they were again. The same 3 girls, sitting quietly at a table near the window. No adult in sight, no food in front of them. Just sitting, watching. The girl with the eye patch tilted her head slightly. Their eyes met. Owen froze. The world around him seemed to fade. The other diners, the clink of cutlery, even the low hum of jazz from the live band disappeared. Her eye, her one visible eye, was the exact shade of his. a rare stormy blue that almost looked silver under certain lights. It wasn't the kind of thing you saw every day. Before he could think, before he could convince himself it was just a coincidence, the girl with the eye patch stood up and began walking toward him. The other two followed. Owen's breath caught. He didn't move, didn't know if he should. They reached his table and stood in a perfect line. Silent. Still. The one with the teddy bear clutched it tighter. The tall one had her chin lifted as if daring him to say something first. But it was the girl in the middle who spoke. "Are you Mr. Owen Larkson?" she asked. Her voice wasn't what he expected. It wasn't timid or afraid. It was clear, calm, and unnervingly direct. He blinked, nodded slowly. "Yes." She nodded too. "Mommy said our eyes look like yours." The room spun, just slightly. He glanced from one girl to the next. The same cheekbones, the same soft waves in their chestnut hair, the same unblinking stare. It was like looking into a mirror broken into 3 tiny pieces. He opened his mouth to ask a question, but nothing came out. The girl with the eye patch reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a crumpled photograph. She laid it on the table in front of him. It was a picture of him, 10 years younger, laughing, with a woman he once knew, briefly. A woman he had met one summer during a tech conference in Europe. A woman he had never seen again after that week. And beside her in the photograph, a baby in her arms. Owen felt the ground beneath him shift. "Where's your mother?" he managed to ask. "She said she'd come back," the girl replied softly. "But it's been 2 days. She said she was going to get medicine." No one came looking for them. No resort staff intervened. No concerned waiter asked why these children were alone. Because no one had noticed, except him. And now he couldn't unsee them, couldn't unhear the words that had shaken the very foundation of the life he had built with steel walls and emotional silence. 3 little girls, 1 eye patch, 1 impossible connection, and a single moment that would change everything. Owen didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of the massive hotel bed, its high thread count sheets untouched, staring at the photo the little girl had left on his dinner table. His fingers trembled as he turned it over again and again, as though there might be some secret explanation hiding in the smudged corners or along the faded edges. He remembered the woman. Her name was Elena. Beautiful, sharp-witted, with a laugh that had surprised him the first time he heard it. They had met at a tech summit in Barcelona. She was an interpreter working for the European delegation, and they ended up talking one night at the hotel bar when the event's dinner ran late. What began as casual banter turned into long walks under city lights, midnight wine, and a week that had felt strangely out of time. Then she was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just a single text. "Thank you. Don't look for me." Owen hadn't. He had told himself it wasn't serious, that it was better this way. And now, 10 years later, 3 little girls stood in front of him, each with echoes of that same woman in their features, especially the one with the eye patch. Amber, she'd said her name was. And now she was asleep, somewhere in that same hotel, with 2 girls by her side, and no adult watching over them. At 2:43 a.m., Owen finally stood up. He paced the length of the suite, his hands shoved into his pockets, his jaw clenched tight. He didn't know what to do. There were no pages in any of his business manuals, no chapters in his executive leadership books that covered what to do when 3 girls showed up at your dinner table claiming to be your daughters. His first instinct had been to tell the front desk, call security. Surely there had been a mistake. But then Amber had spoken, and it wasn't just her eye that looked like his. It was her composure, her eerie calm. He knew that trait. He lived in it every day. By sunrise, he still hadn't moved beyond that one truth. He couldn't ignore this. He dressed quickly, not bothering with a tie, and took the elevator down to the breakfast floor. The restaurant wasn't open yet, but the kitchen staff was moving about in quiet efficiency. Owen waved off the hostess and walked straight toward the far corner booth where he had last seen them. Empty. He scanned the room. No girls. No sign of them. His chest tightened, and a ripple of panic, an emotion foreign to him, started to form in his gut. He walked out toward the lobby, glancing around like he might spot them hiding under one of the potted palms or curled up on a couch. Still nothing. He was about to turn back when he heard a familiar voice. "She's awake now, but she won't talk." Owen spun toward the sound. The tallest of the girls, the one who'd stayed close to Amber the night before, stood beside a vending machine, speaking softly into a phone she clearly didn't know how to use. It wasn't even on. She was pretending. Practicing. Maybe. He approached slowly. "Where's Amber?" he asked. The girl startled, then stood up straighter. "You came back," she said, matter of fact. He nodded. "Of course I did." She blinked, her expression a mix of suspicion and hope. "She's in our room. She had a nightmare. Micah's with her. Can you take me there?" he asked, keeping his voice low. The girl hesitated. "Mommy said not to let strangers in, even ones who look like us." "I understand," Owen said gently. "But if your mom doesn't come back soon, we're going to need help." A flicker of fear crossed her face. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sienna," she whispered. He extended his hand, and after a long pause, she took it. The room was down a side hallway, tucked away in the older wing of the hotel. Owen immediately noticed how different it was from his suite, smaller, less updated, with 2 beds pushed together and a small suitcase half-zipped in the corner. Amber was curled up on the mattress, her arms wrapped around the girl with the stuffed bear. Micah, the eye patch was off now, revealing a cloudy iris underneath. Owen stepped inside slowly, his heart hammering against his chest. "They've been eating crackers and bananas," Sienna said. "That's all we had left." "Has anyone checked on you?" "From the hotel?" he asked. She shook her head. "We told them Mommy was resting. We didn't want them to call the police." Owen rubbed his temple. This wasn't just about surprise anymore. This was dangerous. If their mother had really left them 2 days ago and hadn't come back. He crouched beside the bed, not too close, and looked at Amber. Her eyes fluttered open, locking on his face like she had expected him there. "You came," she said quietly. "I did." She sat up, looking around the room as though confirming it wasn't a dream. "Are you mad?" Owen's voice caught. "No, Amber, I'm not mad." "We didn't mean to scare you," she added. "Mommy said if anything ever happened to her, we should find you." He swallowed hard. "Why didn't she tell me about you 3? Amber looked down. "She tried. She wrote letters. I saw her crying once when the mail came back. She said you had guards and blocks and people that stop things before they reach you." Owen felt like someone had punched him. That sounded exactly like the fortress he had built around his life. 1,000 layers of security. Assistants to screen everything. Lawyers to block surprise. He had made himself impossible to reach. And now these girls had found him anyway. "I need to talk to the hotel manager," he said, mostly to himself. "And a doctor. And probably." He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Sienna was watching him. Micah clung tighter to Amber. "No one's taking us away, right?" Amber asked softly. Owen looked at the 3 of them. Alone. Brave. Fragile in a way that made his chest ache. "No," he said finally. "No one's taking you anywhere." Not without answers. Amber nodded once and then leaned against Micah again, her small body relaxing just enough to show she believed him. As he stood up and stepped out into the hallway, Owen Larkson, a man who had signed billion-dollar deals without blinking, felt something new settle in his chest. A responsibility he had never expected. A bond he couldn't explain. And for the first time in a long time, the beginning of something real. The next morning, the sun rose behind a thin curtain of clouds, casting a pale light across the resort. Owen stood on the balcony of his suite, a mug of untouched coffee in his hand. Below, the ocean murmured its endless rhythm, but for the first time since he'd arrived, he wasn't soothed by it. He was thinking about 3 girls sleeping in a modest room not far from his own, their mother still missing, and the questions that now swirled endlessly in his mind. He hadn't gone to the authorities yet, not because he didn't think it was serious, but because he wasn't ready to let them go. He had spent most of the night pacing, calling a private investigator in London, and digging through old emails for any sign, any name connected to Elena. He found one. A message she'd sent him just after Barcelona, filled with poetry and warmth. Then nothing. A cold, sharp silence that had lasted nearly a decade. But those girls, they were unmistakable. Especially Amber. The resemblance wasn't just physical. She had the same calculating pause before she spoke, the same sharpness in her eyes, as if she were always observing just a few steps ahead of the conversation. He pulled himself away from the balcony and got dressed. No suit today, just a button-up shirt and dark jeans. Less like a CEO, more like someone who belonged. As he stepped into the hallway, he found Sienna already there, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a notebook on her lap. She looked up. "You walk loud," she said without smiling. "I've been told," he replied, crouching beside her. "What are you writing?" "A schedule." Amber said we needed one. He glanced at the page. Breakfast, study time, story break, quiet time, puzzle hour, lunch. "I'm in charge today," she said. "We take turns." He nodded slowly. "Do you want to have breakfast with me today?" "Upstairs, on the rooftop. There's waffles." Her eyes narrowed. "What kind?" "Any kind you want." Sienna seemed to consider the offer like a business proposal. "Okay, but Amber has to say yes first." Back in their room, Owen found Amber sitting at the edge of the bed, her eye patch back in place. She looked tired but determined. "Are you taking us somewhere?" she asked without hesitation. "No," Owen said gently. "I was hoping you'd come have breakfast with me. No tricks, just waffles." Mika looked up from where she was drawing in the corner. "With bananas," she whispered. Owen smiled, a real one this time. "With bananas." The 3 girls followed him to the rooftop like little ducklings, wary but curious. Owen noticed how they stayed close together. How Mika clutched Amber's hand even when she tripped. How Sienna held onto her notebook like it was armor. They were a unit, a team of their own, and whatever had happened in their lives before now had made them fiercely protective of each other. A table had already been set up on the edge of the terrace, overlooking the sea. Owen had called in a favor from the hotel manager to keep the space private, and a server was waiting with warm smiles and fresh juice. Amber sat down first, her eye fixed on the waves beyond. "Mommy always said we'd live near the water one day." Owen sat across from her. "Did she talk about that often?" Amber nodded. "She loved the sea. She said it never judged you. She'd tell us stories about it. Said if we listened hard enough, we could hear secrets in the waves." Mika was busy stacking blueberries into little towers on her plate. Sienna pulled out her schedule and tapped the paper. 10 minutes for talking. Then quiet chewing. Owen chuckled. "You really like planning things, don't you?" "I have to," she said simply. "Otherwise it's chaos." He understood that better than most. "Where's your mother from?" he asked after a moment. "Where did you live before this?" Amber glanced at Sienna, who gave a slight nod. "We moved a lot," Amber said. "Last was a town called Harper's Reach. Before that, Reno. Before that, I don't know." She said it wasn't safe to stay long in one place. Owen's fingers tightened around his fork. Did she ever say why? Amber looked down at her plate. There were people looking for her. She was scared. Owen's heart sank. What kind of people? Amber shrugged. She didn't say, just that they wanted something she couldn't give. After breakfast, they played a game of memory cards at Sienna's insistence. Owen found himself paired against Amber and Micah, and it wasn't long before he realized they were cheating. Adorably and obviously. Sienna, meanwhile, watched like a referee, arms crossed. Owen couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed. But when Micah tried to bluff through a match with a chocolate-smeared face, something inside him cracked open. It was small, but it was there. The beginnings of warmth. Later, after lunch, he brought a doctor friend to check on Amber's eye. The girls were scared at first, huddling around her, but the doctor was kind and gentle, and soon Amber was seated calmly on the bed while the other two hovered nearby. "She's got a cataract in her left eye," the doctor explained quietly to Owen afterward. "It's rare in someone so young. Likely congenital, possibly worsened by injury or lack of treatment. She'll need surgery, but it's treatable." Owen nodded. "Can we schedule it?" Quietly. "I'll make the arrangements. I'll have someone call you tonight." Owen glanced back at the girls, now sprawled across the floor coloring in silence. "And for now, she's okay, but don't wait too long." That evening, Owen sat on the floor with them while they drew pictures. Sienna sketched a beach with a huge umbrella. Micah drew a dog wearing a cape. Amber's drawing was different, a house with a wide window. And inside it, a woman holding hands with 3 girls. Owen looked at the page. "That's your mom." Amber nodded. "Where is she in the picture?" Amber hesitated. "Safe," she whispered. "She's just not here yet." Owen felt a lump rise in his throat. He didn't know where this was all heading. He didn't know what kind of danger Elena had been running from, or if she was even still alive. But he knew one thing with absolute clarity. He couldn't let these girls go. Not now. Not ever. The phone call came at 2:37 a.m. Owen was awake already. He hadn't been sleeping well, not since Amber had told him her mother disappeared 2 days before they approached him. He sat up slowly, careful not to wake the girls, who, against his better judgment, were now sleeping in the second bedroom of his suite. He crossed the room, picked up the phone with a tight jaw, and answered on the second ring. "This is Blake." A pause. Then the low, steady voice of his private investigator, Marcus Flint. "I found her. Elena Vargas. But you're not going to like it." Owen's breath caught. "She's alive. Far as I can tell, yes. But it's complicated." Owen walked toward the window and stared out at the blackened ocean, the waves barely visible in the moonlight. How bad? She was using aliases. Multiple. Last traceable ID used 3 weeks ago at a pharmacy in a small border town. Bought antibiotics and children's cold medicine. I traced the pharmacy back to a CCTV feed. She looked sick, thin, like she was hiding from something. Owen gripped the edge of the desk. From who? She's been on the move for over 7 years. Sometimes under the radar, sometimes just barely above it. It's not just one person. She was running from an ex, possibly abusive, but also from something bigger. Maybe criminal connections, maybe something she saw. Whatever it is, she's terrified of being found. Owen turned away from the window and lowered his voice. What about the girls? Didn't register them anywhere. No birth certificates under her real name. Could be she gave birth under aliases or off the grid entirely. Either way, they're invisible on paper. That hit Owen harder than he expected. 3 brilliant little girls who didn't officially exist. "I need to find her," he said finally. "I got someone tracking her last known location," Marcus replied. "But I'd be careful if I were you. Someone else might be looking too. Someone without your reasons." Owen ended the call and stood in silence for a long moment, hand pressed to his forehead. Every instinct told him this was spiraling fast, faster than he could control. But those girls, his girls, needed more than protection now. They needed answers. So did he. The next day, the atmosphere in the suite changed. Amber was quieter than usual, her calm turning into cautious silence. Sienna became more demanding about her schedule, as if order could protect them from something they couldn't name. Micah, sweet and wide-eyed, began drawing pictures of monsters hiding under beds, but always with a girl holding a flashlight to scare them away. Owen canceled all his meetings, pushed back his flight, and called in a child psychologist he trusted, a woman named Dr. Olivia Pennington. She arrived that afternoon, a warm presence in a lavender blouse, her voice gentle but unwavering. The girls watched her closely. She didn't speak to them at first, just sat with them while they played and let them approach on their terms. Eventually, it was Mika who crawled onto the couch beside her and asked, "Do you like rainbows?" Dr. Pennington smiled. "I love them." After that, it was like a key had been turned. Within an hour, all three girls were talking. Not everything, not the worst of it, but enough to paint a picture. They had stayed in motels, cabins, even in a converted van. Their mother had homeschooled them using workbooks and old laptops. Sometimes she cried at night when she thought they were asleep. Sometimes they had to pack up in the middle of the night and leave without breakfast. She was scared all the time, Amber said quietly, but she always told us we were her brave girls. Owen stood just outside the door, listening. His chest felt like it had been cracked open. How had he never known about them? How had Alina gone through all of this alone? That night, he made a decision. The next morning, he took the girls to the marina just outside the resort. A small boat waited at the dock. Nothing flashy, just a modest vessel with soft seats and space for a picnic. The girls climbed aboard with wide eyes, clutching their hats and sunscreen like tiny tourists. "Are we going far?" Amber asked, squinting at the water. "Just far enough," Owen said. The ride was smooth. The sea stretched endlessly before them, the sun warm but not harsh. Sienna leaned against the railing, her face lifted to the wind. Mika giggled every time a wave splashed higher than expected. And Amber, stoic, steady Amber, watched Owen with the kind of look that held weight beyond her years. "Did you love our mom?" she asked suddenly. Owen blinked. The question came like a punch to the gut. "Yes," he said quietly. "Very much." Amber looked away. "She said you were kind once. And smart. But you liked rules too much." Owen chuckled under his breath. "That sounds like her. She said you'd never understand why she had to go." "I didn't," he admitted. "I still don't. But I'm trying." Amber didn't answer. She just looked at the horizon, then back at him. "Don't leave us, okay?" He wanted to tell her he wouldn't, that he'd never let them go. But he also knew promises to children carried more weight than most people realized. So he said the only thing that felt true: "I'm not going anywhere today." Later that evening, back at the resort, Amber handed him something, a small, worn envelope. "She told me to give it to you if we ever found you," she said. "I didn't think we would, but I kept it." Owen opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a folded note in Alina's handwriting. "Owen, if you're reading this, I don't know if I'm alive. I don't know if I ever told you how sorry I was, but I had to leave. They were after me. I didn't trust anyone, not even you. Not because you weren't good, but because I didn't want you to get hurt. These girls, they're mine. Ours. If they find you, it means I couldn't keep running. Keep them safe. Don't let them disappear like I did." Tears welled in his eyes before he could stop them. It was the first time in decades he cried for something other than anger or frustration. He looked over at the girls curled up on the couch with popcorn and cartoons playing softly in the background. They didn't need a billionaire. They didn't need a CEO. They needed someone who would fight for them like their mother had. And Owen Blake, for the first time in his life, knew exactly who he needed to become. The days began to stretch into something almost resembling a rhythm. Owen found himself slipping into habits that once would have terrified him. Morning pancakes with Sienna, critiquing his syrup-to-butter ratio. Afternoons on the sand building lopsided sandcastles with Micah, and long walks with Amber, who never said much, but always looked like she was thinking 10 steps ahead. He stayed at the resort far longer than planned, watching emails stack up and letting meetings fall to the side. The company could run without him for a few weeks. His life couldn't. Not anymore. Not after this. But there was still no sign of Elena. Each day that passed without a word only deepened the quiet ache in Owen's chest. He didn't tell the girls, but Marcus had called twice with dead ends. The trail had gone cold. Elena was gone. Again. And this time, it didn't feel like a choice. It felt like a disappearance. On the 12th day, something changed. It started with Amber. She knocked on his bedroom door just before sunrise, barefoot in her pajamas, her expression tighter than usual. "I think something's wrong," she said. He rose immediately, heart jumping. "What is it?" "It's Micah. She's not waking up." He rushed past her to the adjoining room, where Sienna stood frozen near Micah's bed, her small hands clutching the stuffed lion. Micah lay curled under a blanket, her skin too pale, her breath shallow. "She said she was tired last night," Sienna whispered, her voice shaking. "But I didn't think it was bad." Owen didn't hesitate. He scooped Micah up gently in his arms and carried her through the suite, his phone already pressed to his ear. Within minutes, his private resort doctor was rushing through the door. Blood pressure, pulse, flashlight in the eyes, all the clinical things Owen had watched from afar during board meetings or charity hospitals, but never this close. Never when it mattered this much. "Her fever's dangerously high," the doctor said gravely. "We need to get her to a proper hospital. Now." A helicopter was arranged within 20 minutes, one of the perks of Owen's status. The resort had emergency evacuation protocols for the rich and influential, and for the first time in his life, Owen used them not for himself, but for someone small, fragile, and unconscious in his arms. Amber and Sienna sat silently across from him in the chopper, their eyes wide but dry. He held Micah close as the blades thundered overhead, whispering promises into her ear she couldn't hear. "I've got you. I've got all of you. I swear it." The hospital was clean, white, and far too bright. Machines beeped. Nurses moved fast. A pediatric team surrounded Micah like bees around a flower, asking Owen questions he had no answers to. "Any known allergies?" "I don't know." "Medical history?" "I don't have it." "Has she had all her vaccinations?" He stared at them, helpless. "I don't know. I didn't even know she existed until 2 weeks ago." The nurses hesitated, trading glances. One of them gently placed a hand on his arm. "Then please wait outside, sir. We'll do everything we can." The waiting room was worse than any boardroom, worse than any hostile takeover. Owen sat between Amber and Sienna, trying to remain calm for them, while his heart raced like a freight train. He couldn't lose her. He couldn't lose any of them. After what felt like years, a young doctor appeared with a clipboard and a weary expression. "She's stable. Severe bacterial infection, possibly from untreated pneumonia. We're starting IV antibiotics now. You brought her in just in time." Owen exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Amber slumped into his side, and he wrapped an arm around her. Sienna rested her head on his leg. But the relief didn't last long, because when the doctor walked away, another man appeared in the hallway. Tall, thin, wearing a suit too sharp for a hospital. He wasn't staff. He walked straight to the reception desk, spoke to the clerk, then glanced over his shoulder, his eyes locking directly with Owen's. It was subtle, but Owen recognized it. A tale. Not a reporter. Not a lawyer. Something worse. He stood slowly and whispered to Amber, "Take Sienna to the play area. Don't talk to anyone but me." Amber didn't ask questions. She just obeyed, grabbing Sienna's hand and walking away. Owen approached the man, hands loose at his sides, expression unreadable. "You lost?" he asked. The man smiled thinly. "You must be Mr. Blake." "Depends who's asking." "Name's Greer. I work for someone who's invested in the whereabouts of Elena Vargas." There it was, the thing he'd been waiting for, the thing he feared most. "She's not here." "I know," Greer said smoothly, "but her daughters are." Owen didn't flinch. "What do you want?" Just information. Where she's been, who she's talked to, whether she's planning to surface again. Owen took a step closer, his voice low and sharp. And if I don't tell you? Greer smiled wider. Then maybe the next person I ask won't be as polite or as gentle. Owen's blood went cold. He had enemies in business, rivals, sharks. But this was something else. This wasn't about money. This was about power, silence, control. Whoever Greer worked for, they weren't just hunting Elena. They were trying to erase her. You don't get to go near them, Owen said tightly. Not the girls. Not Elena. Not even her name. Greer's smile faltered just slightly. Careful, Mr. Blake. You've built a very public empire. It would be a shame to see it tainted by personal entanglements. Owen didn't move. Then try me. Greer stepped back. For now, I'll consider this a courtesy visit. But you should know, people like Elena, they don't stay hidden forever. And when they're found, they don't usually get second chances. He walked away. Owen didn't sleep that night. He stood at Micah's bedside, listening to the steady beep of the monitors, watching her chest rise and fall. Then he made another decision. If the world was going to come for these girls, then it would have to go through him. And Owen Blake, for the first time in his life, wasn't afraid of losing everything. He was afraid of losing them. And he wasn't going to let that happen. Not now. Not ever. It was 3 weeks later when the storm truly hit. Micah had fully recovered, her energy restored to the point where she was back to chasing lizards in the hospital garden with Sienna and daring Amber to climb trees they were definitely not supposed to climb. Owen had relocated them to a private villa near the outskirts of town, secure, quiet, and staffed with people he personally vetted. He had transformed from a man who ran companies from skyscrapers into someone who made breakfast while learning the difference between cartoon streaming services and which kid liked peanut butter on the crust. And though it wasn't easy, it was right. The way Amber came to him with her drawings. The way Micah called him Blakey just to see him scowl. The way Sienna waited for his hand before crossing any street. These weren't just moments. They were roots. But peace has a way of alerting the past, like calm water that shudders when something swims beneath it. It started with a phone call. Blocked number. No voicemail. Then another. Then silence. That same night, a package was left at the front gate. No return label. Just a single flash drive and a note. In case you forgot who she was. Owen didn't show it to the girls. He waited until they were asleep, then loaded it onto his laptop. The screen flickered to life. Grainy security footage from a warehouse somewhere in the city. It zoomed in on a woman, thin, limping, hair disheveled. But there was no mistaking her face. Elena. She looked terrified, clinging to a wall like she was trying not to fall. She said something to a man off camera. Then the footage cut out. That was it. Owen stared at the screen, fists clenched. Whoever had sent the video knew exactly how to get into his head. This wasn't about Elena running. She was being hunted, and whoever was behind it had now dragged him into the middle of it. He called Marcus. "Find her," he said. "I don't care what it takes. I want to know who's doing this, and I want them stopped." Marcus didn't ask questions. Understood. The next 2 days were tense. Amber could sense something was off. She was perceptive, much more than any 10-year-old should be. One night, when Owen thought she was asleep, she sat beside him on the balcony and said softly, "You're scared." He didn't deny it. "You think my mom's in trouble. I think she's trying to protect you the best way she knows how." Amber nodded slowly. She wasn't always scared. Before, she used to laugh. Like a lot. And sing. Especially when she cooked rice. But when Micah got sick, and the doctor said we couldn't pay, everything changed. Owen swallowed hard. "She didn't want help from bad people," Amber added, almost like a whisper. "But I think they made her take it anyway." That night, Owen sat with the weight of everything he had built, his empire, his rules, his isolation, and realized none of it mattered anymore if he couldn't protect the people who now were his everything. The next morning, Marcus called. I found her. Owen froze. Where? A medical safe house downtown. She checked in under a fake name with injuries consistent with what we saw in the footage. She's not leaving, but she's not safe either. Someone's watching the place. I'm going there. Owen, it's risky. I don't care. Book the car. Get me there now. He didn't tell the girls. He left a note. Be back by evening. Be good. Blakey loves you, and kissed each of their foreheads before slipping out. The drive to the safe house was quiet. Tension hummed in the air like static. The street was worn down, flanked by graffiti and shuttered shops. No cameras, no visible guards, but Owen could feel the eyes. He entered through the back. The nurse at the desk didn't look up. She's in room 14. You've got 10 minutes before we rotate shifts. Owen nodded and made his way down the narrow hallway. The moment he opened the door, she looked up. Elena. She looked smaller than he remembered, thinner, face bruised, left arm in a sling. But her eyes, those same storm-gray eyes Amber had, were sharp and furious. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. You're in danger, he said. She gave a bitter laugh. And you brought yourself here. You think they won't follow you. I know they will. That's why I'm getting you out. You don't understand. I do. He stepped forward. The girls are safe. They're happy. But they miss you. Amber, she's carrying all of this on her tiny shoulders. You think disappearing was kindness, but all it did was leave them wondering what they did wrong. Tears welled in her eyes. I never wanted this, she said, voice cracking. They threatened to take them from me. Said if I didn't work their routes, didn't carry their meds across borders, they'd sell them. I couldn't go to the cops. They own the cops, so I ran. But I couldn't take them with me anymore. Owen knelt in front of her, his voice low. You don't have to run anymore. I'm here, and I have people. Real people, not afraid of shadows. You just need to trust me. She hesitated. Her lip trembled. How do I know this isn't another trap? Because I already chose you. I chose them, before I even knew what that meant, and I'm not walking away. She closed her eyes. For a moment, he thought she would tell him to leave. Instead, she whispered, Okay, let's go. Owen helped her up, supporting her gently. As they walked out the hallway, alarms began to ring in his head. Something felt off, too quiet. No rotation, no staff. The trap wasn't in the room. It was outside. As they stepped into the alley, 2 black SUVs screeched to a stop. Doors flew open. Men in suits, guns drawn, stormed out. Owen pulled Elena behind him, shielding her with his body. Then, from the rooftop across the street, came a shout. Drop your weapons. Snipers. Marcus, his team. They had followed, covered every exit, anticipated the ambush. Within moments, the armed men were on the ground, disarmed and cuffed. Marcus approached, calm as ever. You always have to do things the hard way. Owen smiled faintly. It works. That evening, Owen returned to the villa with Elena at his side. The moment the door opened, Amber stood up from the couch. Her mouth parted in shock. Then a cry, half joy, half heartbreak, escaped her lips. Mommy. Mika ran. Sienna screamed. They collided into Elena's arms, sobbing, laughing, clinging. Owen stepped back, letting them have that moment. And as the sun set outside, casting gold across the living room floor, he realized something. This was what his life was meant for. Not profits, not titles, not isolation. But this, a family built from broken pieces, a love born not from ease, but from choice. And as Elena reached for his hand, eyes soft, Owen knew He wasn't just their protector now. He was theirs. Forever.